another episode of With the Chiefs.
Wait. Man, I need more rest.
I hope I've got your last name right there.
It's a very good pronunciation.
You should know better than that now, Donald.
I know. Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. We are very blessed today to be joined by AuraLea Fain. She's from America, actually, and is studying her PhD in Biomechanics, which is pretty exciting and a topic that I'm pretty keen to get into. But she's run in US colleges, I think, as well, University of Utah and Boise State. And she's currently doing her PhD at Macquarie Uni. Also, she's just recently ran a 2:44 marathon at Gold Coast, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, but I can't wait to get into some biomechanics and learn a little bit off AuraLea. So, welcome to the show, AuraLea.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Apologies for the 40-minute technical difficulties that just happened. We were kind of just sitting here for a while, and actually, it's recording, so it's all good. We normally just start with a bit of a training recap. Mm-hmm. So maybe just go over what's been happening with you in terms of training.
Yeah.
If you could.
So right now, just kind of getting back into the swing of things. After Gold Coast, I took a bit of time to kind of mentally, physically recharge. So we're kind of focusing more on getting that speed up 5K, 10K stuff. Had a bit of a niggle for a little bit in my hamstring, so had a few weeks of just slower stuff and just maintaining volume a little bit.
Yeah.
And so trying to get back into sessions. So looking towards track season in the summer, or I guess faster road races in the summer, 5K, 10K, and just trying to see what we can do for that.
Yeah.
Really just getting back into the swing of things, getting some speed under the belt, and forgot what it's like to go that fast.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Just kind of maintaining similar structure in my training, 2 sessions a week and a slower long run. Now they're not in a marathon block. My long runs don't really have efforts in them right now, which has been a good break. It's been nice to kind of just have relaxing long runs. So
yeah. What is maybe just go through typical week in the build up to Gold Coast? Or?
Yeah. So in general, my Mondays and Thursdays are just kind of like easy runs by feel. Tried to cover around 10 to 14 Ks. And then Tuesday are sessions with the Delta crew at Gore Hill. Wednesdays were midweek long runs. And so those I generally cover at least 18 Ks, try to get up around 24, 25.
Yeah.
And then Fridays would be another session, but lower volume. So sometimes it would just be hills or speed, but generally those sessions would maybe cover like 8 Ks of work to end for like 15 for the day. And then easy on Saturday or off. I tried to give myself 1 off day every 2 weeks, just entirely rest. And then a long run with efforts on Sundays.
Yep.
And then if I needed the mileage for the week, I would maybe tag on 5K easy on turf, like really going like 5:20, 5:30 per K pace on Tuesdays and Fridays on my session days. That just made sure that my easy days were truly easy, because I think in the past I used to do easy runs and like twice a day instead of doing a session and then an easy run.
Okay.
So it kind of really helped structure that to make sure on my easy days I was just running 10 Ks and my body could actually adapt and recover to what I had been putting it through.
Yeah.
So that was in general kind of the buildup that I did for Goldie, and I've kind of continued that pattern just with a little less volume now.
Okay.
No 2-a-days right now, which has been a good break. But yeah, same general structure. 2 workouts, 1 midweek long run, and 1 weekend long run.
Yeah.
How long did you give yourself for the build up?
I think I started the proper marathon block after a couple weeks after Sydney 10, so May, April, I think.
Yep.
So not quite as long as a build-up as maybe I would have hoped.
Yep.
But I think that also allowed me to stay healthy throughout the whole thing. So I didn't have any injuries. I had a very smooth build-up, no injuries.
That's good.
I got sick one time, and it only knocked me out for a couple of days. So.
Was it COVID or no?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't. But I did sound like I'd been smoking my entire life. It was bad.
Yeah.
But I still managed to do like half a workout and then, but remembered that I needed to allow myself to recover from that. So it's easy when you're training for something to be like, I can muscle through it. I got it. But, I managed to take a step back and recover, which allowed me to get back into training pretty quick in that kind of condensed build for Gold Coast. So
because I had a similar, not a similar build, but what was your training like before? Did you kind of work into it, or were you?
I worked into it more or less. I've been running for a while, so I was kind of consistently hitting like 90 to 100K weeks, just kind of regular runs, maybe throwing a workout in there.
Yep.
Until I started coming to the Delta sessions.
Yeah.
And so that added a little more structure into my training. So before that, it was really just me just going out for easy runs most days, and then one session by myself up in Lane Cove, the track that's up in the UT. The North's track.
Yeah.
Then doing one like longer run, like 24 to 27K on the weekends. That's
right.
pretty much it.
So you joined Delta pretty recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How did you join?
I was asking around my work, so the joys of being a biomechanist is a lot of people also run or participate in sports. So I kind of put feelers out and like, hey, I'm looking for kind of a group to run with because I'm pretty new to Sydney, and I wanted to meet some people, and I know the running community is always really open and welcoming.
Yep.
And one of my friends people I work with had thrown out, I don't remember what group he was talking about. He was like, they're pretty fun, they're pretty low key, down to earth. And he was like, well, what kind of times are you looking to run? And so I told him, he goes, okay, so you're going to want something that's a little less recreational. And so he told me to reach out to Jerome at Delta.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to Jerome and had a chat with him. He gave me a call, and we talked about the group and goals and everything, and it seemed like a good fit of people who are kind of aiming for some ambitious time goals, but also enjoying just running in each other's company. So I found it was a good balance of having goals and still allowing it to be fun.
Yeah. It makes a big difference. Even just recently, I started going to some Delta sessions when the training program allowed it. It's and I always mention when I used to train with Dom, like it makes such a difference.
To
not be out there in the morning on your own.
It really does.
Yeah, so I kind of look forward to, even after the marathon, I think I'll move into something a bit faster. So I'll be going to more sessions and stuff like that, which will be fun.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to, Dom, in terms of training?
It's been kind of a weird couple of weeks. I think a few episodes ago we talked about like just mental health kind of and how we both weren't really feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I don't know, it seemed like the next week we were like, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah.
Let's go.
We go through
but
this.
I still felt like I wasn't really quite there. And maybe it's the long runs or something like that, just not feeling myself enough. But I just had 1 week where I was just like, I cannot be bothered. Like work is stressing me out, and probably missed like 2 or 3 runs. Just wasn't loving it. But it's good having a coach, and I just messaged my coach and said like, look, like, can I start maybe adding in little runs in the day or something just to kind of lift my spirits, because I kind of missed that. Even just getting out for lunch at like 15 minutes or something, by the end of the day you feel so much better about yourself rather than stressing in your head all day at work. So I think just that kind of like lifestyle aspect of running was missing, and I was starting to get a bit too obsessed with the training. Also probably like you mentioned, like running with other people helps a lot. And I feel like I've just sort of started to just get in my head a bit too much and be on my own too much. But
I remember you mentioned, because we were going to go for a run with Adrian around the bay. It might have been around that sort of time.
Yeah.
You're a bit. What is there anything that sort of threw you off course? Anything in particular, or just one of those things when you get into a negative?
Yeah,
mindset?
I think not feeling enough on the long runs. So then like the next couple of days, I just felt really, really drained because they're pretty big long runs, like I don't know, 3.5, 4 hours or so. And then you just don't have the energy to run that day, and then you kind of just spiral out of control. You miss one day, you miss 2 days, and it's like you're out of the groove of it. But
and stuff like that, it's so mentally draining. I don't think, and emotionally draining. I think, it took me a while after Gold Coast or after long runs, if I, like you said, didn't fuel properly, to just kind of feel like myself. You have that brain fog going on. You're just not feeling it. And I think when you're training for something like you're doing right now, your head and your heart are in it all the time. And then when you hit a bump and you're just like, well, it's not, I guess I don't like it as much as I thought I did. And then you start getting kind of like a downward spiral. But it's easy to do, try to do things that bring the joy back into running for you. And for me, I'll like turn off not even bring my watch, or like try to go for a run with people that I know lift my spirits, or go into one of my favorite places. So little things that bring the joy back into running, because that's why we do it. It's hard, but most of the time we enjoy it. We forget to do it for enjoyment sometimes.
Sometimes I'll go out, and it might be similar. You go out and you're like, if you're not feeling it, you're like, why am I doing this? Like sometimes, because you got such a hard, say you have a hard effort, and there's a difference between, feeling like you want to do, like you're looking forward to working hard, versus like, I just got to get through this. And then that's my tendency. Then I'll start spiraling, because I'm like, what? Like you said, why am I doing this? All those thoughts come in, and then it can send you downhill. So I'm not sure if it's similar for you, but like, but then you just get through it, and you get lifted back up when you're reminded about like running with people or stuff like that. But
I think for me, like running with people, and then I was minding a friend's dog. And having like a dog is so good. Like
Cody.
Cody. He wakes up at like 5:30 in the morning. But like it's not a bad thing. Oh, it's like a little.
It's very important.
I'm not too sure exactly what. I think it's like a cross, like Jack Russell-y kind of.
So energetic.
Pug kind of thing.
Okay.
But he's pretty old. He's like 13.
Okay.
But he gets up early in the morning. But I don't feel like it's a drain to get out of bed, because like he's wanting to go for a walk, and he's so excited to see you and stuff. So that's kind of helped a bit actually. Like but so like doing that, and then this week's just started running at lunch and stuff, and just I don't know, I guess I've changed my mindset about how I was thinking about it, which has helped, and kind of I'm glad I caught myself out, and just recognized that I was still feeling a bit shit. So
that's good. I feel like it's sometimes we'll just like force it down, just be like force through it, and allow yourself to I don't know, be human. And not be so gung-ho about running all the time. Like, it's completely normal. I think sometimes we want to be all in all the time. Allow yourself those hiccups. Sometimes, be kind to yourself.
Sometimes I'll be upset, and I'll be like, I meant to love this thing, and I get angry that I'm not, like, and it just multiplies. And I'm like, oh god, this is not good. But anyway.
But I think it's like the program's pretty tough as well. It's like the whole intent of it's kind of like tiring you out for the Sunday long run. So you go into it feeling like exhausted, and you've got to do like a big long run, and it's kind of simulating the same sort of feeling you'll feel in 100k.
You're making ultras sound super fun right now.
I was already like, I'm not doing those things. I'm certainly not.
And I guess that, like, doing a long run when you're fresh and stuff, your mindset is like, let's go, and like this is going to be fun, and it makes such a big difference compared to when you're tired and just wanting to throw the towel in, like
before you start.
Exactly. But
sometimes I wonder, is it the fatigue? Is like the fatigue? How much is the fatigue playing a role in your mental health, like negative mental health as well? Like just the sheer being tired from training. Because but then I can't figure out. Sometimes I feel I'm really tired, but I feel great.
Mm.
I don't. It's a weird.
It's weird. Yeah, there's a lot to it. Running, it's a crazy sport.
Easy
Simple
to
but
overthink,
complicated.
isn't it? Yeah. It's really easy to overthink. Sorry, I just threw you off again.
Yeah, no, but training's still going pretty well. Like I've been hitting the sessions and getting some pretty good long runs in, and where I'm dog sitting at the moment, it's like really close to the trails. So all the runs have been on pretty cool trails as well, which I'm really enjoying. But what about you, Smitty? How's your week going?
I'm recapping from. I sort of tracked back from the last episode.
Yeah.
For once, I'm being prepared, and I'll try not to drag on for too long. But, so this goes to Tuesday. I did 6x1K, which I saw you there, and got carried away. But it was good. I really enjoyed going fast. I think it's been maybe like, I can't remember how long actually, a few months even, since I've done a fast session, because a lot of the training's just been tempo stuff below, slower than sort of marathon pace and even a bit slower, just to get my legs used to grinding through that sort of stuff. So it was nice to run fast. Definitely went a bit quick on the first rep and probably leveled out. But 3 minutes rest is a long time. So it was easy to just jog and sort of recover.
Yeah, equal rest-ish.
Yeah, ish. Yeah. I don't know how short the oval is, because I wasn't running that quick. As per the GPS.
It's the oval's a little weird. So if you're going the way that you were going, he was motoring. Your watch is on. We've come to this.
I was on my right.
So your watch is like on the outside or on the inside. So it's we think it's slower. So if you were to run the opposite direction. I've gotten kilometer repeats that are like probably 5+ seconds faster going the opposite direction on that oval. I think it's just the GPS. In that area, so it can be a little wonky sometimes. And I've seen people's Strava graphs too. Sometimes when the GPS, they just act up for no reason. There was a couple weeks back where everyone's GPS was just messed up, and up at Pod, someone's Strava map was just basically a slinky. It was just they were all at FOD the entire time. Yeah. But it was just this little orange line that was just like down past Pacific Highway, and I was like,
that's not right.
I don't know how that happened. So FOD can be a little bit weird, but it's 440 around the cricket oval. So if you know that, then
even adding 5 seconds. Yeah, adding 5 seconds, I'm still cool with the paces. I think my coach said I probably could have pushed a little bit harder, because I was still, because remember I used to do those VO2 max type efforts for 1 minute 45, so no, it wasn't like kilometer, and I would run like I had to learn how to sort of even pace that, because you go out 200 meters like a repeat, and then you just go backwards as your legs would just almost seize up. But I don't know. It felt good. I'll do park run on Saturday, so I'll see. Just go out. I'll see how I go. So
are you trying to run a certain time, or you just see what you have?
Oh, it's a good benchmark, because I did it before Gold Coast.
Yeah. What'd you run then?
16:14, but I blew up. I went out with Sotar. And I wasn't ready to grind. And I just wasn't feeling it. But if I can, I don't know, maybe 16:10 or something, or go out at 16-minute pace, and if I blow up, I blow out. Yeah. But see how I go. It's normally a good indicator of, even if it's a bit off, I know what I ran before and what I ran at Gold Coast, so I can kind of work in. I don't know. Then you start overthinking. So I'll just run it and see.
The 5K is not a marathon as well.
No, but I ran a 5K on the track. Remember before? What was the one I did around Penrith Lakes? Oh yeah. And that was 16:33. So I can I think I'm trying to correlate things that might not be correlated, but we'll see. we'll see. Anyway, 6x1K, good. I was happy with it. Wednesday was 60 minutes easy into Thursday, which was 80-minute tempo, which is grim.
Yeah.
Like, truly grim.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Tempo.
Yeah, and it's just below, it's not like a hard, it shouldn't, first 50 minutes shouldn't feel too hard, or 60 minutes, so you kind of got to go at a pace that allows you to feel good for that amount of time. I felt like I did a good job at that. The last 15 minutes got pretty tough, but I was happy with how it went overall.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty good session.
Yeah, it was a good session. Yeah, it was good. That was the previous, because then I did another 80 minutes anyway. I'm recapping the wrong week, but I've been taking Fridays like completely off, which is good. I've been enjoying it. Then Saturday easy with Tobias. I've been enjoying running with him. Have you met Tobias?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I have.
No. I'm just thinking because
I might.
He's part of. He's
I've
in
probably
Delta.
seen his face.
Yeah.
But there's so many people who go to those Delta
Yeah.
sessions that there's a lot of names to faces that I don't really know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of training with Tobias because he goes around the bay, and I don't think I can drag myself around for 80 minutes on my own. Like it makes such a difference having someone next to you pushing you.
I used to just text people before my Sunday sessions or in the Delta chat, just be like, hey guys, I have this tomorrow and I need some help. Who wants to who wants to go around the bay with me and do stuff? So it always helps, especially those long
ones. Yeah, exactly. But I've been feeling, just in terms of morale, getting through the sessions gives me a bit of a boost. So I sort of haven't been trying to play with try and go out too fast, which I think I was doing in the past, which caused me to spiral a little bit, but I've been managing that well. And then just finishing the sessions, I feel like as long as even if you do it a bit slower than you'd hoped, it's better than going out too fast and then worrying about not at a certain level. But for me it comes down to trying my best not to worry, just enjoy what the session you have in front of you, as opposed to think. I have the tendency to be if I don't hit this time, then I won't do this, and then it how it goes from there. So it's just enjoy the session and go from there. So that's been a better mentality for myself, at least. Sunday I did 4x6K with 4K on, being marathon pace, maybe a bit quicker, 1K float, and 1K hard, which is a good way to break it up. It kind of makes the 6K go pretty quickly, and then 1K jog in between.
I like that session.
Yeah, it's cool. Good. It's good. Yeah. So the way I got to the end of it, feeling by the time you finish the second, you're I don't want to do this anymore. And then there's a little hump you get over, and you're okay, now once you get through the third, you're all right, I can get through this. But then on the fourth, I felt good again. And it's almost how much does your mind get in the way? Because my body was fine right to the end, and I was able to push on the final kilometre, which is a good sign. But I sort of early in the session felt like I couldn't. So it's kind of a balancing act. But anyway, it was good.
Have you done that session before?
No, I haven't.
All right.
No. So the 1K hard is almost like a threshold kilometre, so sort of half marathon pace, maybe even a bit quicker. So it's a good indicator of if I'm getting right to the end and I can't push, then you're kind of getting worked up by the previous sort of work. So that's a good indicator, I feel, at least. If I can go hard on the final K, then should be in a good place.
Yeah.
But training's been going well. That was the week, and not long till Melbourne. So see how we go.
Excited. I think you're going to do well. Your training's been really consistent, and yeah. According to Strava, all your workouts have been really good. So
okay.
Well.
So I was talking to you before about the anxiety of the marathon, but
I 2 nights before I was like verge of tears or in tears. Like each
Jeez.
night. Yeah. Well, it is like you get really anxious because you put so much of yourself into it.
Yeah.
And I think as runners, we have this like common trait of wanting these like number goals or everything. Like, I don't know, you know that so many things can go wrong in a marathon.
Yeah.
And so it is anxiety inducing. But yeah, what we were talking about is just kind of like allow yourself to just be anxious about it. Because I think that's when we get in a weird place. It's like, oh, I shouldn't be anxious, or this anxiety is bad. I think it's like healthy nerves. Like allow yourself to be anxious about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe take some magnesium to help you sleep.
Yeah. Something. Probably not a Valium or something. Maybe not. But I felt like the previous marathon, I used those nerves. Like I was really nervous, but it boosted me along and sort of kept my physiology really, I don't know, on edge.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think we were talking before, the effort felt, I remember doing tempo work before, and then it was like feeling hard, and then in the race it just feels easy. I'm like,
it doesn't make sense.
I can't explain it.
Yeah, it's weird. We were talking about that. It was just kind of like, when I did Gold Coast, I had an idea of a plan and what paces I should run, and I ran faster than what was planned, but it felt so easy. There's no, like, aerobically very easy. And so looking back at my workouts, it probably makes sense. But in the moment, I was like, okay, this is weird. This feels really easy. Starting to get anxious about why it feels good. But I think if you've done the work, and so it seems a little daunting, but it should feel pretty easy for the majority of the race, I think. So,
I remember when we did, because you paced me on the second marathon around Penrith Lakes, and 33 k's in, I was still hitting the pace, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. But then 36 k's, my legs just went, and they felt like they were cement. Like, I was like, these are not, I don't know what's happening.
Your body just is like, we need to be done.
That's it. Might have been a fueling. I didn't fuel enough or something like that, but you can be feeling good. How did you go towards the end of the marathon?
I felt really good until about 37K, and that's when I started hurting. It wasn't really cement feet. I actually kind of felt it more in my hips more than anything. Okay. It's like hip flexors. I had to like actively think, like, pull up your knees. And that's when like my stomach started hurting a little bit. So I like tried to take a gel at like 37Ks because I was like, I need a little bit of caffeine, little energy to try to boost. I took one bite of the gel and I was like no, I'm done. But at that point I had my watch and it did mental math, and I was like, right, what pace per K do I need to hit to get to this like sub 245? What, did you work it out? What is the minimum? I barely worked it out. My brain was barely working at that point, but I was like, all right, as long as I hit around 4-minute Ks, I should be good. So I think the slowest was like a 4:07, and so if you look at my pace graph for that race, it's all around like 3:48 or so per K, and then the last 5 Ks, it just goes like 4 minutes, and it's just consistently 4 minutes for the last. So
that's pretty good.
A little bit of a blow up, but not as bad as I was intending. That being said, I also like at one point I like slapped my legs and yelled at them. I think I was losing my mind. There were like people lined up on the side, so like around a K or two from the finish. There were people on the sides where all those team tents are, but like no one was cheering. And it was very strange to me. I looked at people and I like did this. I was like, I need help. I told you, I'm like, tears are in my eyes, and I was like, I need help. And so people started cheering, which was really nice, and I really needed that. And then there's a girl, I don't know if you saw the live stream, but the girl who finished right before me, she bonked. Like her legs gave out. And I saw that, and I felt like my legs were about to do that. And I was like 10 meters from the finish. also yelled at my legs again. I screamed no at my legs. Like, we are getting across that finish line at sub 2:45. So I think it was a big mental grind. And I also, that last 5K, I was also a little bit insane at that point. Like, just really trying. I really emptied the tank. I gave it everything I had. Yeah. So, with evidence of me just screaming at my legs. So.
Well, you were well in the zone to suffer, and sounds like you're motivated to just like not in one of those mindsets where you're like, I cannot be bothered anymore. You're kind of like, just go.
I think that was it worked out. I don't know how we have days where you're just not there, you're not ready for it, you can't do the grind. But I think I was feeling pretty confident with the workouts I had done and how I had progressed throughout the build, that I knew I had it in me. And so I just wanted to get there.
Makes a big difference.
And I knew, based off of like previous, granted I didn't really race it, but previous marathon I did with some friends, I was like, all right, the last 5K is probably going to be where things really hurt. And so just from like time on your feet and stuff. But
okay. I remember, last thing about the marathon before we move on, but in Melbourne, the first one I did, I ran like, when I got towards the end, or no, even like 30K, I started running like a 4:25, and I like looked at my watch, I was like, this is not good. I thought it was downhill from there, so I ran a few of those, but then for some reason you can pick yourself up a bit, and then I ran like one of my fastest Ks, the final K, and I'm like, how does that even work? Where you can like think you can't progress or you can't run any faster, and then somehow towards the end there's got to be something limiting. I have no idea.
It's just like your brain.
Yeah,
You can just dig deep sometimes.
Yeah,
you just find it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Very, very long training.
There's a bit of everything. Yeah, not just training. Yeah, but
okay, biomechanics. Where do we start? Maybe can you give us a bit of background on like what you're studying and how you got into that, and maybe we'll just talk about how it relates to running?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my undergrad in exercise science, and from there, I've always really liked math, and I've always been pretty active. So I decided to apply for grad school to do my master's at Boise State University, where I went into biomechanics, and then that was really my like full-on introduction into true actual biomechanics versus what we had kind of like dipped our toes into in undergrad. And then I absolutely fell in love with it. I focused a lot of my research starting my master's on kind of identifying movement patterns that might increase risk of injury. And a lot of my research has kind of been in a military space. So my master's was funded by the American Department of Defense.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the realm that we were working in. But a lot of those principles are applied to athletic populations too. So,
sure.
I mean, same thing, like running injuries that just people in the military get, which is all the same. They're all, the mechanism is all the same, regardless of your occupation or whether it's just your recreational runner.
Sure.
And I kind of got an experience of working more of a rehabilitation space after that. So I worked for the DoD again. I was at a hospital in Texas on a military base where we did research on or for people with anatomical or functional limb loss, and then kind of targeting rehabilitation protocols for those people. So a lot of that, I did a lot of gait analyses and clinical gait analyses. So able to look at someone's movement patterns as well as their muscle activation and kind of see how we can target their rehab to optimize their movement strategies and potentially make their activities of daily living a little better. And then while I was there, I went to a conference in Canada and met my now advisors at the International Society of Biomechanics, and it was not really a hard sell to like apply for school in Australia and like come get your doctorate down here, because I knew I wanted to get my PhD And so I applied, managed to snag a scholarship to come down here. And so now I'm kind of still in that Department of Defense realm. So we're working with the ADF and the DoD to identify musculoskeletal injury indicators. And my research is specifically in kind of identifying sex-specific risk factors or indicators of injury, because men are generally the biological norm in research. And for that reason, a lot of running, even like running or athletic research, always cites like women are at higher risk of injury just for existing. So my goal is to kind of remove that and just say that like we just have different biology or different general architecture of our bodies might just lend us to different kinds of injuries, different mechanisms of injuries. So instead of men being the benchmark, just having sex-specific indicators. And that way we can maybe target training a little differently. Maybe we can target rehabilitation a little differently. So we'll see. That's the end goal. Maybe I find out that there really aren't any sex-specific indicators, which would also be fine by me. So just kind of trying to approach that idea that men are the biological norm, and kind of allowing more visibility of females in the science. So so doing that, and then also working on a research project as an RA doing for a shoe company where we're kind of looking at some new technology. So
which is all
fun.
Confidential.
Which I won't tell you too much about, but I'm just general like motion capture stuff and kind of looking at how people will like change someone's running strategy while they're in the lab. And just kind of be like run fluidly, run with short strides, run with long strides, stuff like that. So that's another project I'm on.
So what is biomechanics?
What is it? It is principles of I guess like mechanical engineering, but applied to the body. So I do a lot of physics, but just on someone's body.
Right.
So we have like your joint rotations, or what we are called kinematics. So like how your joint angles and stuff. So knees at 90 degrees of flexion and stuff. But all your joints, for the most part, have 3 axes of rotation. So we look at those and all those different axes. And then we have how your body produces those motions. So your joint angles are the end result of your kinetics, or your body producing force or responding to force, basically. So we have these 2 pieces of the puzzle, which are going to be how your body moves and the consequences of that movement. So that's in general what it is. There's a lot more like to it. There are people who do like tissue mechanics, like who like go super detailed into like tendons and ligaments and muscles. They're just like cardiac tissue mechanics that people do. So it's not always just like making skeletal models and like having people run. Sometimes it's like using ultrasound and understanding these inherent properties of your tissues, and applying mathematical models to kind of guess what's going to happen. There's a lot of people who do like data collections with cadaver like joints, so like dead people. So to kind of test, like we can't really test how someone's ACL is going to rupture. So how do you do it? You get a cadaver and then you put it into this machine, and then you put it through all these different loads and motions to kind of see
what happens.
What on average is the force that's required to get someone's ACL to rupture.
And what is it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I wish I knew. Don't know. But so hopefully that wasn't too too much, or
So what do you look at when you're looking at running biomechanics to figure out? I mean, I imagine it's quite complex because I started reading some of them. So
Dom and I were talking about this. So it's a paper I sent to some of the Delta running group, it's definitely biased. So it's not, it's by Brooks Running, and they're kind of coming up with this technology that they're trying to put out there, which is someone's like signature running style. But I think that's kind of the general direction that all of biomechanics is going to kind of go, instead of saying, hey, we have this arbitrary movement pattern that everyone should do to maximize their running economy. It's more like this is someone's habitual running pattern. So I think everyone's going to have their normative running style. And I think if we kind of continue down that path, any deviations away from that might be indicative of an increased injury risk. So, I mean, granted, there's always going to be some things that are going to be an indicator of injury, more or less. Like if someone is kind of a heavy foot striker, that tells me that they're probably receiving more ground reaction forces, so more of their more forces going up their body. And if they're landing with a more straight leg opposed to a flexed leg, they're probably getting those shocks from that ground reaction force up their limb, lending them to higher risk of like a stress fracture or something. So if we can train athletes to kind of flex their legs, absorb the landing a little more, you see it a lot with when you're training like sport, or I guess like soccer, basketball, like landing from a box. That soft landing, a lot of times that some strength and conditioning coaches talk about, that kind of teaches your muscles to absorb that energy and what we call like attenuate, or like pass it up your limb through the muscles instead of through the bone, because the bone doesn't really have any way to do anything with that energy. Your muscles can dissipate it a lot better.
Right.
So by training someone to kind of land with a flex limb or something like that, that's going to be something in running biomechanics. That's going to be kind of ubiquitous across all runners. Like, make sure that you are actually absorbing that impact that you are putting your body through over and over and over while you're running. But other than that, I think if you've been running a certain way your entire life, trying to change how you run might ultimately make you a less economic runner. You might be expending more energy trying to change that, drastically at least. So I think as runners, we can kind of optimize our movement strategies. So optimize how you're absorbing energy versus just trying to change your running style entirely.
That's interesting because, sorry, Dom.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just like the paper was really interesting because it looked at the 2012 US Olympic trials in the 10K race, and the foot strike of all the athletes in that race. And what it showed was that like every runner had a different foot strike. There was no, like, I think in the past everyone thought midfoot or forefoot striking was the way to go, but this kind of showed that like couple of runners were heel striking, some were more midfoot, some were more forefoot. They were landing on like different sort of pronated angles, and that these are the best guys in America and the world, all running incredibly fast, and it kind of showed that everyone has their own unique signature, I guess. So I guess it's kind of interesting though, like you mentioned, if someone might be landing too far ahead of themselves, but maybe their signature is slightly different, and I guess there's like a compromise, like somewhere in the middle is best for them. But
I think so. It's definitely a kind of a fine line, because if someone's overstriding, then their leg is probably going to be more straight when they're landing, so higher forces. So it's allowing, maybe talking about that to that person about increasing their cadence. So maybe instead of overstriding, focus on increasing your cadence, which will bring your foot back in and maybe allow you to absorb that energy a little better. So I think the main takeaway for me would be, we have so many, I think they talked about it in the paper, of like, instead of prescribing someone a shoe that's going to change their pronation entirely, just kind of just allow them to strike their feet as they see fit, and allow their bodies and their lower extremities to go through the range of motions that are kind of standard for them and their body. But they're definitely, I don't want that to take away from the idea that we can also optimize people's running strategy. So For me, maybe the idea would be this person pronates their foot a lot, or they're landing on the outside of their foot heavily, and they're also overstriding. But if we can just get them to get their stride a little closer in, increase that cadence, and reduce those ground reaction forces that they're experiencing, the pronation is not going to really matter quite as much. You should see some pictures of my foot strike while I'm running. It's like on my toe, and my feet are like very out. All of my shoes are just, I'm probably, at least from ankle down, pretty bad mechanically as far as running goes. But I think there's a lot of people who have some preconceived notions on what you should do with like your arms or torso or anything. And you can minimize the rotation of your torso while you're running to improve your running economy and use your arms a little better. But ultimately, you don't want to waste too much time trying to change something that might end up hurting you, because everyone's muscle architecture and geometry is a little different. So you can't really compare two people who are built completely differently and say that they should be running the same. Look at Usain Bolt versus some of the top distance runners, or like Usain Bolt's what, like 6'4"? I don't know. And like it's like a 5'8" runner. Like it's the thing is where their muscles are being attached to their bones might be different. And all the other physics things that are associated with it. So like joint moments and stuff like that, it will require a different amount of force than someone else who has different architecture. So it's a lot goes into it.
It's interesting. I think like the way you grow and how everyone's so unique, it doesn't make sense for, like, just in the simplest form, it doesn't make sense for there to be one way to run. And then I've often wondered, if you were to change it, it's almost like you develop a subconscious, like it's subconscious the way you run to a certain degree, and if you're consciously trying to change it, it feels kind of awkward, or
it would. And I think a lot of the change, or how we can like optimize our running or our running economy, and optimize our form, probably doesn't even lie within running work. Like you can do drills and everything to try to optimize your economy and how you run. But I think a lot of it is going to be, like I kind of mentioned before we got on the podcast, like getting into the weight room, and getting your body kind of used to going through ranges of motion that you're going to put it through while you're running, getting it used to the different kinds of loads. We can talk about all the different kinds of muscle contractions that your body goes through when you're running. So like loading your lower limb, like eccentric loading when you're beginning that stance phase of running, and then isometric forces when you are kind of in mid stance. And we've all seen the down step photo, so your body is just, gravity's just acting on you. And so having that isometric forces happening in mid stance, and then contracting your muscles concentrically when we're getting to that propulsive phase, push off when we're running. So I think that's how we get to that point where we can kind of maximize our economy as runners and optimize our own personal habitual running patterns, is kind of training your body to go through the ranges of motions and accept the loads that you're going to experience while you're running. So
I thought the paper was really interesting. It talked about like running on different surfaces and how your running signature naturally kind of wants to stay the same. So your legs just need to be a bit stronger to accommodate for that uneven ground, which I know as a trail runner I found that really interesting. That like you're kind of better off just leaning into your own style and not trying to change it too much, but making sure that you strengthen your legs if you're going to be doing that sort of activity. I guess that was my kind of takeaway. It started getting a little bit too technical for me.
That's really it. Like it's kind of, your legs are part of what we call like a kinetic chain. And so in that kinetic chain, anything that happens at your foot is going to go up that kinetic chain. And so if you are adapting to very variable terrain while you're running, you need to be able to stabilize your knee and your hip because you're getting a lot of weird motion at your ankle. So that's where that being stronger in your limbs is going to help a lot with trail running, because it's going to help stabilize you on those uneven surfaces. Trying to just maintain your running form, I guess that's personal to you and your signature, even on those uneven terrains, will kind of reduce your risk of injury, because if you kind of deviate away from that and don't have the strength to maintain your own signature, that might increase your risk of injury. Because if you roll your ankle and your knee goes with it, or like your ankle moves weird, your knee goes with it, you're probably going to also like roll your ankle worse than if you could just maintain that knee posture. So
yeah, right. And I guess, like you mentioned, you studied people with like disabilities as well, and like artificial limbs and stuff like that. I guess that kind of ties into this as well. Like, how does that sort of, I guess, their signature changes to accommodate for that?
And that's really hard. So talk about something that's like personalized to someone, because you have like you're going to have a prosthetist working with this person to find a socket that works well for them. And then it's all personal preference, what kind of foot or prosthetic device they want to be wearing. And so it's a lot of trial and error in that space. And so we would have people go to it was a lovely facility where the prosthetics department was on we were the biomechanics lab on the first floor, prosthetics on second, physical therapy on third, occupational therapy on fourth. So it was a really good one-stop shop for these people. And so someone would go see the prosthetist and get a new prosthetic device, come down to us, and we would do a clinical gait analysis and kind of see if there were any imbalances or something that we could address by either by adjusting the prosthesis, or if there was something that needed to be trained for an individual. And so it's someone's movement patterns are going to be drastically different with a prosthesis than it would be with their anatomical limb. But it's going to be the same idea of like someone's going to probably have their own like habitual movement pattern. It's just going to be a little different with a prosthetic device. So I don't know. I hope that answered your question more or less.
Yeah, no,
I know it's very ambiguous, but I think that the direction that the like exercise physiology and biomechanics, I feel like is going is kind of getting someone's signature, like not just in that like the Brooks paper I sent, but in general, like generating this profile of an athlete, an all-encompassing profile, and then kind of flagging deviations away from that. And if someone is kind of if we see something that's like, oh, you're doing something wonky now, what's going on? So I think that's probably the direction it's going to go, and it's going to probably start using a lot more machine learning stuff than we have in the past, instead of using arbitrary numbers. But we have the technology and the capacity now to kind of use machine learning to hopefully generate individuals' movement patterns and movement strategies over time.
How does that work at a high level?
So I think there are different approaches to this, and Luke and I talked about this before. There's a difference between, you don't always need to have lab level ideas or lab level values of or metrics associated with your training or your movement or something. So it might just be as easy as a lot of the devices that people have now, even your watch, it's going to capture what we call spatial temporal parameters associated with your running. So stride length, your cadence, stuff like that. At present, to my knowledge, I don't know if there's any one device or company that is kind of using, like, accumulating all of the data from someone's runs and then just saying like, hey, this is your normal pattern. I've heard of devices that'll be like, hey, you have a little bit of have a little bit of an imbalance, and so they'll flag maybe if you are favoring your left or your right side. But I think hopefully a company might come up with the idea of, hey, this is this person's normal running cadence. Even if there is an imbalance, maybe that's just someone's imbalance. Maybe they just have one leg that's shorter than the other, and that's just how they are. And then maybe using all that data from like a month of training to kind of flag in one run if something has really changed based off of like maybe you spent that run overstriding more than you normally were. Okay. So I think maybe that might be a good commercial way that we can maybe see more of an individualized profile of someone, at least in their movement strategies. It seems like pretty low-hanging fruit, so I feel like maybe that's hopefully someone's already working on it. It might already be in the market, and I just don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting, yeah.
I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but I have like nerve damage in my left shoulder.
Okay.
And I've always wondered like how that changes the way that I run. Because like I know when I was a kid, if I was skateboarding and stuff like that, my balance was never right. Like for example, I can remember when I actually used to ride a scooter and like I could never do it like turn properly, and it was always related to like the nerves in my shoulder. But kind of the way that I ran, like I just don't really think about it, but you will notice it if you look. Like this arm's like a little bit shorter, just caused by the nerve damage. But I don't feel unbalanced running, if that makes sense. But if you probably put me on a treadmill, you would notice it. But I don't really know. Like it just feels normal, and I think it comes down to like that's the way my body's adapted as I've just trained. Just chucking that out there.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people who maybe put work into kind of perfecting their form, it might not, ultimately it might not be like detrimental, and it might not be a waste of time, but I think a lot of people who do get like coaches to focus on their form or like really tune in their form, those are going to be the people who need that little, like the last little bit that they need to like be the best in the world. Those are going to be like the professional runners who have the time and the effort and the ability to actually change their running style drastically. Granted, if they've gotten that far, they maybe don't need a drastic change anyway, but it's going to be a lot of the people who are going to just try to squeeze out as much as they can from their running. But ultimately, I think, it's not going to be I don't think it's going to make or break you ultimately. Getting at. As long as it isn't like, I'm trying to think of an example. So if I saw someone running or a picture of someone running and they're in mid stance and their hips are really off center, so what we call like hip drop, then to me that's going to tell me that they need to spend more time strengthening their stabilizers of their hip, probably doing a lot more strength work and core work, and not just abdominals, but like core of abdominals, hip joint stabilizers, back, because you're probably going to increase your running economy by not allowing your body to kind of drop like that so much in that weight acceptance phase. So little things like that you can work on that aren't really changing someone's running form or their running strategy, but optimizing how they're absorbing energy. So it's being able to take what you see and say, is that someone's just how their body moves, or is that highlighting a weakness that can be addressed and can be changed?
Yeah.
I think, like sometimes, I know the best way to improve your running form is to run more as well. Like just through the act of running more, your body kind of figures out what is good and the best way to kind of hit the ground and stuff like that as well. But maybe that's a long way around, and if you can get some tips, you can...
I think there's definitely something to that. And I think... so your body is definitely going to sort out, hey, this is how I can best perform this activity. But if you are someone who's constantly getting hurt or something's happening, then checking out your running form and what you're doing might be a way to not just change your running form, but like highlight where you can adapt your training to address some of those running form issues. Because running form itself is maybe not going to be the thing we're trying to change. Running form might just indicate to us what needs to be addressed and fixed.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. And I guess like you mentioned before, like the hip and core strength. If your foot's like slightly lower or getting loaded up differently, are there any other kind of common mistakes or tips?
I think honestly the most common thing I see in runners is a lot of that hip drop, a lot of that pelvic obliquity, we call it. So just basically, if you're looking at someone straight on, their right hip is super up while their left hip is down while they're in stance. So I think that is honestly the most common that I see, and it's generally it's more common when people are fatigued, but that in itself is going to be the most common thing I think I see in running, because like you said, in an example of all of those runners in the Brooks paper, everyone's foot strike is going to be a little different, and I spent a lot of years trying to change my foot strike pattern, and I just I can't do it. I spent 2 years trying to land with my foot differently, and I just think something about my anatomy that just doesn't want me to do it. And so why did you want to change it? I had so it was in my undergrad, and I had a strength and conditioning coach who I would do second runs on the treadmill, and he pointed it out to me one day, and he was like, you really should change that. So I would do my second runs on the treadmill facing a mirror trying to change it, and it just took so much effort, and it just didn't do it. It never really stuck, and it would just felt clunky and awkward and really hard to land differently. So
what's the logic behind keeping that? Why would you change it? Obviously you're working against. Exactly.
So I think it was just kind of, that was in probably 2012. So like 10 years ago.
I'm not saying why as in
like, but like, why
would you do that?
But I think biomechanics has come a long way. So I think what I'm getting at is there, like 10 years ago, probably it was this idea of like, hey, this is how you economically run. This is how you get the most energy out of your body while you're running. And I think we're getting away. We have enough science now and the capacity to kind of get away from this idea of there's one way to do something, and more acknowledging like people are people, we're all different. And you can't really apply the same ideas to every single individual because,
So what was the perfect running form? Like, what did they think?
There was a really long time where, like, I think in high school, my high school cross-country coach had us practice, like, by standing on a line and then, like, leaning your chest forward and, like, falling into the run. So I think stuff like that where it's, like, leaning forward, landing, like... I even in middle school, I remember coaches talking about heel to toe. That's how you want to run, heel to toe. Which that was a thing where people thought that a long time ago, where like heel striking is going to be best for long distance running and sprinters run on their toes. But I have always been a forefoot striker, like not just like midfoot, but like on my toes. And so I spent a lot of time, like when I was younger, coaches telling me to like heel toe. Didn't work for me. And then in college, it's just kind of like this idea of leaning forward, which kind of makes sense. Like you have what you call your center of mass, kind of around your belly button generally. And if you lean forward, it shifts your center of mass forward. So it might take you a little less energy to move forward, that idea of momentum falling forward. So a slightly lean forward torso. I think in general, people like land flat-footed midfoot now is maybe it. And then you want to have, I wish I knew the actual degrees, but like the range of motions that you need at like your hip and your knee to be optimal for running performance. But I think, it's really individual to someone. There's a study that my group is doing at MQ, which is looking at people's like anthropometrics. So I would be really interesting. I want to look at someone else's running style who's built differently than me, because after that study, my torso is the same length as my femur, is the same length as my shin. I'm a weird proportioned person. So I want to see someone who has like very different proportions and like look at their running strategies. I don't know. It sparked a little bit of interest in me.
What about with my shoulder? I'd be curious to I'd actually be how do I find out about that?
What do you mean?
Like, if I want to know, like, do you get
How
on a
you
treadmill?
run?
Yeah, like.
Oh, I mean, honestly, if you want one day, if you want me to just like analyze your running
Sure.
patterns, like I wouldn't be able to do like a 3D analysis,
That's
but
okay.
we can definitely like do slow-mo gait analysis, easy with the iPhone.
Cool.
And I can kind of like just visually give you, some like insight into like what's going on.
Maybe there's something I can help, but I think for a long time I worried that it was causing me to run slower, but I was like, I don't think it is, because I'm
not
still...
in long distance.
Yeah.
I would say maybe in shorter events where arm swing and drive is really helping with a lot of that momentum and powering you forward.
Yeah,
potentially.
Sprinting, I feel like this arm lags a little bit behind.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I just felt like as I improved, it was more just my body changing more than anything, as opposed to
And I think the running form thing is probably more important in faster like sprints and everything like that. That's going to be when it's more important and we really care a lot about it. But I think that's not most of the world. I mean, the people who are not in college and doing sprints are just professional athletes. And so most of the people who are participating in running are going to be recreational. And so we don't necessarily need to drive home this idea of perfect running form.
Yeah, that's good. That sounds good, because I just think, where do some of these coaches, do they just hear it and they're like, this is it? This kind of thing. I wonder if they're like just perpetuating the same sort of ideas they've had or they've heard, and it might not be helping, but it's good that it sounds like it's changing quite a lot.
Yeah, at least in the research it is, at least in my realm, and I think then it will kind of trickle down to more coaches and stuff. But I think a lot of, especially if it's coaching, a lot of that is really just based off of someone's personal training history, their like what worked for them, and so they try to pass it on to other people.
Sure.
And I know a lot of coaches do continually learn, so I hope they like stay on top of that. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. So I don't think it is quite as
it's definitely not. I mean, it's not like I think it's just something that happens. They're not trying to do it's just like, this is the best thing to do, let's keep doing it. But anyway, sorry, I think you were gonna
I think it's like that was just sort of how it was in the past. Like they had those preconceived sort of ideas about what running form was, and that was applied. But I don't know, I guess this new sort of research is pretty cool. And I guess, sprinting, it seems like the technical model is like so important, and they spend so much time like just trying to focus on each little phase of the sprint, like getting out of the blocks and then going through the drive phase and then coming up and all of that. Like it's so different to distance running.
It's a condensed event, and so you really need to, if you think about it, long distance running, even if you're doing a 5K, you still have 15 to 20 minutes to kind of get the work done, versus if you're doing a 100-meter sprint, everything needs to be dialed in a way that you can get as much done in 9 to 10 seconds as possible. Like it definitely is a lot more impactful in the sprinting, and so working on form definitely makes a lot more sense in sprinting than it does for long distance running. So maybe I should have caveated literally everything with like most of these are principles that I would apply to longer distance running.
Sure.
And their sprinters are still going to have their own individual profiles. But I do think you're going to see a lot more uniform movement strategies in sprinting events than you are going to see in longer distance.
I think it's super interesting looking at like the men's 1500 and the top performers over the past few years. Like I can remember Asbel Kiprop was like the guy for a long period of time. He got pops doping, but aside from that, his body was like really unique, just like this lanky tall guy with this really long kind of fluid stride. And then after him was kind of like Timothy Chariot, who's really different again. He's got like this really hunched over style. It's like, but he's doing his own thing and making it work for him. And he's kind of like linked into his own style. Like he's not at all what anyone would think the perfect runner is.
Yeah, and I think it's that we're seeing the kind of like that evolution. I mean, going back to sprinting, we see Usain Bolt as like the pinnacle of sprinting performance. His body he's not the typical sprinter. He's way too tall. His limbs are way too long. He has weird moments, like what we call joint moments, happening in his body that like lend him to probably it being harder for him to run sprints and having weirder proportions than all of these people who are shorter and can cover that ground, generate more force and more power more efficiently than he can. But he's still the best in the world. So that's always interesting to me, and I think in the 1500s a great example. You got people who are tall and lanky and really long strides and fluid movement patterns, and then you can get some people who are in that same race who are shorter and more muscular with shorter strides and higher cadence. So I think the 1500 and 5K I feel like have weird crossover of like different body types that compete in it that really highlight like there's no one right way to run. It's just kind of fine-tuning your own style.
Like Jakob Ingebrigtsen's kind of like the next guy coming through, and he's different again. He's more kind of like strong sort of legs and kind of, I don't know, muscly kind of build. But
he's incredible.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
You watch him watch the final or any of the races he's in coming around the corner, he just looks so strong. Like not even like he's working hard. I'm like, that to me, I don't know, to me looks like somewhat the perfect form. I'm like, that's just incredible.
I kind of like Timothy Cherrett though. He's probably my favourite. Like, just because he's so different. Like, they call him, I don't know if he was a potato farmer or something, or that's the nickname he's got, but like, because he's like got that hunched over back. I love it. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah. And then what the perfect, I don't know, what's his name? Chalimo? Do you know?
Paul Chalimo.
Yeah. He looks incredible to me. I don't know. Whenever, I think I saw something on Instagram of him and short, fast Venezuelan, what's his name? Luis, or I don't know. Come on. They look so different, like, because he's like really short. But it was just funny to see the contrast in. They were running the same sort of paces around the track, but vastly different. It was like talking to the fact that you could be running the exact same pace and just achieving it in completely separate ways. Which is cool.
I feel like in the women's as well, like all the different sort of like body types and stuff like that is just wildly different as well. Like everyone has very much their own individual geometry and their things that are working for them, which is it's pretty cool, and I think it's a really cool concept.
And like women tend to have even more variable skeletal structures as well, because like you have the pelvis is always going to be different on women, and so women generally tend to have wider pelvises, but not always, and so that also lends to different angles of between their like the top of their femur and their knee, which is called a Q angle. Sometimes people will cite that might increase women's risk of injury, particularly probably of ACL, but some people I think might say that it increases risk of like femoral stress fractures, so like in the neck of your femur, but it's generally inconclusive. But little things like that where it's just that's the more we try to say that like all like these populations entirely have one specific architecture or movement strategy, it's always going to be inconclusive because people are people and they're all very different. But the women in particular tend to have a lot more different skeletal structure, and that kind of goes back to like why men are the biological norm, is they don't have a bunch of different hormones happening, and they're an easier biological system than females are. So women have different levels of testosterone and estrogen and all of the like sex-specific hormones. That means like the women who are a lot more muscular and leaner are going to have a lot more testosterone than the women who aren't quite as lean, but they could be competing in the same race and doing just as well. So I find with women, you see a lot more variations in their body types because we have a lot more hormone variation going on in our bodies that are like optimal to us specifically. So someone might be completely performing their best at like at a super lean level of body fat percentage, while someone else is going to do better, a little higher body fat percentage. So little things like that also will change someone's like, how they approach a race and potentially their running form. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that is kind of starting to carry through the men's side as well, almost. Like there's the triathlete Christian Blumenfeld who won the Olympics, and he's just like smashed the Ironman record as well recently. But he's like he's not your typical real lean kind of guy. Like he's a bit more kind of muscly, and he's kind of famous for saying like this is what works for him, and he can eat a bit more food and do all of that, where compared to like in the past, like I think men have always been just like try and be as lean as possible, and you'll run better and perform better. But I guess it's not the case.
Yeah, it's definitely not always the case. So there was not to plug another podcast while I'm on podcast, but The Long Munch is a really good podcast that someone just turned me on to. And they had a couple of episodes talking about is leaner faster or is lighter faster, and they talked a lot about that. And like anecdotally, I don't look like I'm a typical marathoner. Like I'm pretty muscular, and I'm probably not as lean as most of the girls who get on a start line, but I can apparently perform pretty well. So I think it's kind of getting away from that idea of there is a specific way that people should run, look, be to be competitive in their respective field. And just kind of focusing on that idea of a signature running style. I think kind of it extends beyond just biomechanics, but also training, body, literally everything. Just acknowledging that people are people and we're messy and weird and different.
I like the idea because it's nice that it's coming down to that, but it also allows you to be yourself as well. And it's like not getting drawn into I'm less of a runner or a person because I'm not like that. So it's just accepting, this is what I got, and it's let's work with it, and it's good. You know what I mean? Like I have been drawn into, just like I think everyone, into like comparison, which can be unhealthy. So it's nice to know that we're all different. That's a good thing.
It's kind of like just leaning into what works for you and finding out who you are and what capabilities you have. But it sounds like getting in the gym is one of the better things you can do to improve upon your form and things like that.
Yeah, I would 100% say that. I'm a huge proponent of runners going to the gym. Kind of like I said, if someone is landing with a more flexed limb, they're going to absorb more of that energy in their muscles versus their bone. But that necessitates that you have the strength necessary to control that flexion of your limb while you're running. So getting into the gym to me is going to be really important for people optimizing their running economy, and honestly just reducing their risk of injury. I spent a lot of years in college having a coach tell me that I shouldn't lift heavy, because I've always been a little more muscular, and so I had a coach who told me that like lifting heavy made me put on too much mass or made me too muscular, and I couldn't perform as well. So I had to only lift like 2 days a week and not very heavy, and he actually made me like get weighed every 2 weeks to make sure I wasn't putting on too much muscle. Women's sports, it's fun.
That's not good.
And it wasn't until after I graduated, I took some time off because like running in college in the States is a little intense, clearly. So I took some time off competing, and I started lifting in the gym, and I got my certified strength and conditioning specialist certification from the National Strength and Conditioning Association in the United States. So that kind of necessitates that you have a bachelor's degree in exercise science field, and then you have to do take a test and do all these other things. So I started doing my own lifting training and just kind of focused on the gym for a little while. And then when I got back into running, I have never not been hurt for so long in my life. Like in college, I got stress fractures in my femur, in my feet. I had tendonitis. Like at one point I didn't run for 9 months because I had a stress fracture in the neck of my femur. Like I wished that I would have been able to train in the gym in a way that kind of trained my body to withstand the stresses that I'm putting it through in running. And in college, like 100 Ks a week was the highest that I ever did, and only would do it like once a year. I'm consistently running at least 105 Ks a week right now, and my body's great. I haven't been really hurt. Like I had that hamstring niggle, but that was from too much speed too soon, and not necessarily anything else. Not like overtraining or putting my body through things that it wasn't really ready to do. So I think my personal experience has been getting in the weight room has been a game changer in maintaining my consistency in my training because I haven't been hurt. So would recommend to a lot of runners at least try to do it. Like I definitely train more than the typical runner in the gym because I also just enjoy it, and I do other things other than run. I also rock climb, and so strength is really important for my rock climbing. But I am a huge proponent of runners getting in the gym a couple times a week, even if it's just for like 30 minutes, kind of doing things that'll train you for your running. So doing unilateral work, single leg deadlifts or like RDLs with a kettlebell or something, or even if you just want to do like back squats and RDLs, like things that are going to be really beneficial to your running. And not just because your leg strength, but a lot of those compound exercises like back squats with a barbell also train your core. They train your abs and your back to maintain that posture when you're weighted. And ultimately, it's great for your bone health. Like so good for your bone health. And as runners, and especially as female runners, like there is no better way to increase your bone density than weight training. So would absolutely recommend.
Well, you got two very contrasting experiences with that. Like you've got what was happening to your body in college versus now. So obviously,
like it is arguably pretty anecdotal and specific to me. But I think to me it's evidence of if I would have been able to train in a way that would have been helpful to my running, which would have been lifting a little heavier or lifting a little more frequently, then I think I probably wouldn't have gotten hurt as much. And it is individualized, so I don't think that's the case for everyone necessarily. I don't think everyone needs to lift, all runners need to lift more than 2 days a week for 30 to 45 minutes. But I think most people would benefit from that.
You're right. And was that the only variable that was different comparing to training in college versus now, or is it other variables?
No, probably nutrition a little bit. We had a nutritionist. At least when I was at the University of Utah, my experience with the head coach was a little negative based off of that. So my nutrition definitely faltered. I think every year I was told that I should probably lose 5 to 10 pounds. But
ridiculous.
But the thing is, it's like kind of standard. And so it's unfortunate, and it shouldn't be the standard, but it's that idea of there's this optimal body type for running. And so, and that's kind of where that came from. Just old school ideas of like, oh, you are too big or too muscular to be a distance runner. So if you want to be really good, you should probably drop some weight. And so my nutrition definitely suffered because of that. And so now I'm a lot more consistent with my nutrition. My strength training is a lot better. And I think my training, I enjoy it a lot more than I did. I really liked my friends that I ran with in college, and I still, some of my best friends in the entire world are from college. But I think now I've found my training, like the easy days are really easy and my hard days can be really hard. And so just kind of taking rest a lot more serious than I used to, because rest is part of your training. Like a rest day is a training day. Your sessions are the stimulus, but rest is where we actually give ourselves the space and the time to adapt to that stimulus. So I think being able to rest a lot more was helpful.
Yeah. And when were the sessions a lot harder or
in college?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. We would do track. Our speed sessions would be Tuesdays, and our threshold sessions would be Thursdays, and then long runs with no efforts or anything on Sundays for the most part. So not really. I think I'm faster now than I was in college. Like I've already run faster in the 10K than I have in college, and I'm pretty sure a 5K that I ran in a 10K kind of matched my college PB. So it's I think something about the training maybe didn't gel with me in college. I don't know what it was. It was a bit ago, so memory's a little fuzzy. But generally, like faster 5K, 10K pace stuff on Tuesdays, threshold Thursdays, where we would do like mile repeats, 2 mile repeats, something like that.
I think it's a good reminder that again everyone's different. You know, the standard approach, not just in running form but in a training program and all these sorts of things, your body's going to react differently, and I'm glad you found, you know, what works for you, and it's obviously better for your overall health as well, which absolutely. Is great.
And I think
and you're getting faster.
I mean, I do attribute a lot of it to Jerome and his coaching.
He's good.
I have a bit of, I think a lot of runners, the too much gene. I'll do too much. You give me the latitude, I'll do it. Jerome has been great at like putting the brakes on me and pulling in the reins. And one thing he always reminded me was like, don't get greedy. Like that's how you get hurt. Don't get greedy. And I love that. Like that's true. I really need that because I'll be like, oh, I missed my second run yesterday. I'm just going to go for like 15 or 20K today and call it good. And then Jerome's going to be the person who's like, it's not a huge deal. Just take it easy. Like have an easy day. Run maybe an extra couple of Ks on this day and not today. Like make sure you rest. So it's been really good.
Having the perspective is someone else, because you can't see it yourself. I find I'm like, that sounds good in my head, and it's like it's probably not a good idea a lot of the times. But what do you reckon, Dom?
I think getting coached by Jerome was really good because he really did a good job like explaining what every session was meant to achieve, and kind of allowed those hard days to be really hard. Like I don't think I've ever like trained as hard as I did when I was with Jerome. But taking the easy days easy. And I found like if I did want to do more, I ended up doing the extra things like more gym and more of those kind of 1%er kind of outside of running activities that actually supported my running. So, I think that having a coach is really good, and more running isn't always the answer.
Well, or more of anything.
True.
More isn't always more. So it's been good to have him in my back pocket. Like I'm very grateful for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Same with me with Sally. I think I've talked about it many times on the podcast, but I guess because we're talking about it now, it's like I got into that mentality of just chasing mileage, and it wasn't getting me fitter. And I was getting injured.
Yeah.
I kept getting, and it's like, okay, it doesn't. More mileage definitely does not equate to more fitness. It's just really about how specific, for me, the workouts have been.
Well, there's a lot of people that we run with who will be like, oh, I can't run more than 90 Ks a week or my body breaks. And I'm glad they found that for them. And for me, I don't know if I go below 100 or 90, I feel like that's not a volume that really works. If I'm actually chasing a goal, that's not really something that works for me, because I don't know. I'm a bit of an I like the endurance stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So I like give me a good long, slow midweek long run. Like
Yeah.
I'll trade that like 25Ks for like an easy like 10 at 4:30 any day. So
Yeah. Yeah, and also you got to figure out what you actually enjoy as well,
Yeah.
training wise.
Yeah.
Which takes a while.
it's a long time.
Which takes a while. But yeah, anyway, I think. Do you have any more questions? Or?
No, that's it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. We normally end the episode just by asking what the guest's favorite race is. So do you have any previous race that you really enjoyed or favorite memory from a race?
I don't know. I feel like I have so many racing memories that have been really good. Like going all the way back to like high school. I don't know. Maybe can I give two?
Yeah, of course.
There was one race we did in high school, and I want to find another one like it. So it was called 7 of 7, where it was the top 7 runners of a cross-country team, which are like the varsity team or whatever. There was men and women, so they'd start with the 7th runners on each team from like everywhere in the state would start the race, and then they'd wait a minute or two, and then the number 6 runners would start the race. So it was a chase.
Okay.
It was so much fun because you're starting like whatever runner you are. If you're like a number 3 runner, you've got runners 4 through 7 ahead of you, and you want to try to catch them. So that was a really fun race because I was able to run with like one of my teammates, Josh, and he and I ran together for that. And I don't know, it's just a very like vivid memory for me, which is like really fun. I think it was just a good time. And then honestly, like it's silly, but I think Gold Coast, because I had been so intimidated by the marathon for so long, and I didn't know if I could do it. Like I said, verge of tears, like a couple of nights before. And I have never felt so supported by my like running community, like not just like during the race, like I guess before the race, but during the race, Anthony Wood and I ran together. I don't think I would have been able to do it without him. So I just felt really supported by him, really grateful to everyone who kind of reached out to me beforehand and wished me good luck and kind of reminded me and grounded me and reminded me that I've done the work and I can do it. And so, Gold Coast was just a good memory because, I think going into that, I was like, I don't know if marathons are for me. I get it now. Like it's so fun and challenging and grueling. Yeah. But good. Good. And it's hard to put into words if you haven't really had a good marathon before. But yeah, I think it definitely lit a fire under my belly.
Yeah. I didn't run the marathon there, but I was there. Mm-hmm. I remember I saw you coming around the corner 250 to go.
Yeah.
You were ready to be done.
I was hurting.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was trying to pass me, and I did not let it happen.
Still looking strong, but you were like, you could tell everyone. It was so crazy watching people cross. It's like everyone had gone, because everyone's gone through so much, and just seeing everyone, it's like a mix of pure pain and pure joy, sort of all bundled together.
Natalie Wong from Beyond the Road. She got some good pictures of me, just like I'm smiling, but also kind of crying and laying on the ground. It was pretty good. And that finish line was a good finish line. Yeah, it was very cool to see everyone's emotions.
It was very watching. I was with Arthur actually. And it was actually very emotional, just watching people cross the line. Something about the marathon that's nowhere near the same level of emotion as any other race.
Literally anything else,
I don't, and you feel it. I don't know. Yeah. It's weird.
It is beautiful.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Even my mum, I think I've talked about it. Mum and my auntie were there, and they don't know much about running. Yeah. But they were there till the 6 hour point.
Oh my gosh.
Watching, because so they had a friend who was racing, and she actually hurt herself, but she just finished like 6 hours, and they were there, but they were like, this is the most incredible thing we've ever watched.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's just, even people that aren't fully into the marathon, just there's something very human about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for joining.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't ramble too much.
No, that's really
it
good.
was
Okay.
fantastic.
All right.
Thanks for joining and best of luck with everything moving forward. That's all I got.
Thank you guys. Good luck in Melbourne and good luck at UTA. Yeah, I'm excited to see how y'all do. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Thanks.